Hello again, Steve here, with a few comments, my opinions anyways, as to what we can learn from Donald Trump. Now, whether we love him or hate him, most people probably hate him because of where they're coming from, for sure. But I think we can certainly learn from the guy. I just picked up a couple things that I've been noticing in this whole Trump phenomenon that's going on. As something we can learn from him, I think one of them is that the man is himself. For the most part. I mean, most other politicians are, well, they're politicians, and Trump is not really a politician. He's definitely a performer, an entertainer, and all that sort of thing, but he's not a politician. And thus he's more himself. And he comes out to be so in so much of what he does. He doesn't apologize for being himself, he's just himself. And he's extremely confident in himself. There's no wavering. If he thinks something needs to be said, he just says it. At least that's how he comes across to me. And another thing we can learn from him, I think, is that maybe it's just a sign of the times. People are fed up with phonies. Because that's what I see in politicians everywhere. There's complete phonies. Trump doesn't appear to be a phony. Once again, you can hate what he's doing, but it seems like he actually believes it. Whereas any of these other characters like Obama and the whole Trudeau and maybe even Stephen Harper and a lot of these people, they don't come across as believing what they're saying actually. I mean, think about Obama. I mean, the guy is supposed to be a constitutional lawyer, but he doesn't abide by the Constitution whatsoever. I mean, he just declares war basically on his own. He's got these executive orders. He's talking about limiting guns and all this. It's all against the Constitution, right? He taxes people all the time in areas that they're not supposed to be taxed. So I think that Donald Trump is more himself than others. I think he is, and I think the people are tired of phonies, and therefore they're more attracted to him. And the evidence of people being attracted, maybe it's just a momentary phenomenon, but I mean, he's come out of obscurity. I mean, he's a very famous guy, but political obscurity, pretty much. And I mean, people like Jeb Bush or whatever, they're like 2% in some of the polls, whereas in the Republican side, whereas Trump is in some cases over 50%. And these are media outlets that are posting this stuff that hate Trump. I mean, they just hate Trump. They hate anything to do with what he wants to do, right? Bring back sort of Republican conservatism. The other thing that I think we can learn about Trump is his popularity style, which is if you watch some of his speeches, they're very unpolitical. He just tells stories, and he uses very abrupt words, like he said about Obama. I used to call them incompetent, those people who are running that organization. Now I just call them stupid. It's really really interesting. And he also doesn't hold any punches when he talks. He states names. He doesn't bother saying this is somebody that won't be talked about. He uses the words like idiot and what did he say? An insufferable human being, and all kinds of different things that he says. And he talks about the media as being incredibly corrupt, and the people who work in it as complete sleazebags. I mean, you'd never hear this stuff coming out of a politician, right? So people, I think, there's such a vacuum in that area of the world, in the politics, of anything truthful. I mean, this is how average people talk. They talk about media people as being scumbags. To hear somebody who might be president actually talking about that is incredibly relieving for them. And he's being himself. And of course, one of the reasons why he can be himself, it seems to be, is that he funds his own campaign, right? It takes millions and millions of dollars to do what he's doing. He's got it. All the other characters, they're all just bought and paid for by guys like Trump, right? Trump holds no bones about it. He said, I watched one video recently that he said very recently he gave 300,000 to some political lobby group or whatever to get stuff done. That's the way business is done. He wouldn't survive as a businessman at his size. He didn't pay off the ruling classes, right? And so I think there's a lot of things we can learn from Trump, love him or hate him, about improving the quality of our life experience. The biggest one, I think, is being ourselves. Trump, I think, is an example of somebody who is just himself and extremely confident. He doesn't seem to bother him at all the hate he gets. In fact, he seems to just relish in it, because he had this one little story about how he was in Mobile, Alabama, and there was 35,000 people in the stadium. They had to keep going from one place to the other until finally they went to this big football stadium and put 35,000 people in it, because there was no room anywhere else in the city for that many people. And the mainstream media is there. Of course, they all hate him. They completely hate him. But they have to be there because this is the biggest story in town, right? Even if they hate the guy, they got to be there. So they hate him, but they love the attention they're getting. But all they'll show is his face, right? They'll never show how big the crowd is. He said, what's wonderful, unless there's one heckler, and one heckler way up in the crowd. He loves the hecklers, he said, because at that point, the media will focus on the heckler and listen to what the heckler has to say, and in having to move their camera, they actually show a few thousand people. So, and he says this with such lack of emotion, such humor in a way. It's amazingly refreshing. I mean, I'm the first to say I don't agree with some of the ideas he's coming up with, like bombing the fuck out of the Middle East. But hey, I think he's actually honest, and he's being himself. Now, I think he'd be a hell of a lot better than most of them who are there. I mean, at least the guy can run something, has a track record of running something, and apparently is genius in terms of his IQ. He's an incredibly intelligent man. He's been incredibly successful in everything he's done. It shows you how irrational people are. I mean, if they, they'd rather a guy who was a leafleteer in Chicago, some sort of a social activist or something, to run the place, instead of a guy who's been successful at everything he's ever done and had to negotiate everything he's done rather than be a bully. But, hey, people are the way they are. I think we can learn from him anyway. I think we can learn from anybody. We'll probably learn from a guy like Hitler. Probably learn from him as well. We can learn from everybody on how to be a certain way, how to present oneself or whatever. But I think Trump is a good example, primarily, of somebody who's just himself. He doesn't give a fuck what people think. And of course, he's also successful behind that. So he's also a celebrity to begin with. But I think people are incredibly hungry for that. I mean, I forget what it was that U.S. Congress has an approval rating of something like 2%. I mean, if you're a Republican, if you traditionally voted Republican, and you saw what went on in Congress, where a majority House of Republicans vote to just open up a floodgate of spending. Completely just acting exactly like Democrats on steroids and speed and, lines of coke. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So there's nowhere these people, if they are statist, they're not anarchist or whatever. They still want to vote for somebody. They've got no choice. They've got no choice. I mean, the Republicans are gone. And here comes along this guy who just is himself and has got an incredibly good track record in terms of running things. Is funny, is a storyteller. You can see it in his eyes. He just loves what he's doing. He really wants to be the president. And it seems like, and the other thing that's interesting about Trump is he's incredibly egotistical, but he's completely okay with it. He doesn't apologize whatsoever. And he just moves on, and people seem to love him for that too. I mean, it's almost okay to be any kind of a personality aspect, as long as you don't apologize for it and you go for it with complete confidence. And that's what Trump is. I think we can learn so much from Trump. I mean, the man is he's just amazing. He runs a fantastic company. He's incredibly brilliant. He's written apparently the best or the most successful business book ever written on negotiation and making a deal and so on. And heck, he even gets Vladimir Putin, the world's most hated man, to endorse him as, "Hey, buddy, right on," whatever that means. But bottom line, I think that he's himself, and it's extremely rare to see that. This is, I don't know in American history when there's been a public figure running for president who was himself like this. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big historian or whatever, but it's quite rare. It's extremely rare. And maybe it's just a matter of desperate times calling for desperate measures. Somebody has stepped in who really cares, because they are in a load of shit down there. Well, a shitstorm is gathering, and it's, it might be too little too late. But anyways, whatever happens down there in their election, and I've said it many, many times before that the Republicans will try what they can to get rid of this guy. With these polling numbers, I don't know. But I think we can learn something about him, something from him about being ourselves. Say what we believe. Don't apologize for it. Things like that. Be confident. He's a bundle of confidence too. And be a good storyteller. And that he is. Steve here again. Great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.